Hey guys, my name is Tim. I'm the master mechanic at Zeiten BMW Mobile Services, and right behind me or beside me is BMW 335i, which has N55 engine. So it's 2011. It's exactly the same engine in 2010 and the late models of 2009. In the early models of 2009, you might have N54, and this repair will not be for you. What are we going to do here? Replacing the valve cover gasket. I know you guys have been waiting for it, so without further ado, let's get to it. So first thing we're gonna do is remove all the plastic. I'll start with this one. There's covers that pop off just like that, and they have the rubber right here. Once you remove those, there is a 8mm bolt right here, and it's exactly the same on the other side, as well as 8mm on this cabin filter, well, basically housing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 right there, and number 7 and number 8. So I'll remove all those and show you how to remove the rest. So all the bolts are removed. Now the only thing left is remove this rubber, I don't know, I'll call it a rubber pin. So just slide it out on both sides. The other one is exactly on the other side right here. Just slide it out, and there's a basic BMW push and release connector right here, usually connected on those spots right there, but keep the wire out, and that's it. Like nothing else holding it. We just remove this whole cover. Now this cover, we could start with this one. It just pops off. It's on clips and it slides out this way. So you see those things right here, and this is where it sits, like 1 and 2 spots. On the back of it, you can see the rubber grommets that go over it, and those things into those holes. Now we're going to remove the air filter box, and I start with the mass airflow sensor right here. So it's a standard push and release, but you might be troublesome, so I'm just going to use the pick tool to go right here. Just slide it in, get it out. The easiest way to do that. And then, well, you can take it off from here right away from this tube. So I'll disconnect it right here, make it loose. And it's not absolutely necessary to remove this air duct, but I will do that anyway. It's held as usual by Torx 20 bolts right here, and this one it's 25. Torx 20s they are. You can do it without removing it, but it just makes it a bit easier. And on both sides, standard sort of clips for this air duct. And there you go, there you have it. Now this air filter box is sitting on clips, so just lift it up. It's another one right here, right next to the mass airflow sensor. This might be a little bit, there we go. And yeah, I forgot to remove the wiring. So the wires are sitting on this rubber grommets. There we just lift them up. They might be hard a little bit, but they come out. There we go. What else? And this is it for the air filter box. Now I'm going to remove this reinforcement bar. We need to remove only one. Those are E-bolts in the middle as well. Here you only need to twist it 45 degrees and take it out, the cap. This one is, as far as I remember, it's E16 or E14, one of those. 14mm socket. just like this. 12.14 millimeter fits right over it, and it doesn't break the bolt. It's not torqued to the extremes, so that's what I always use. There is no need to use anything else. And right here, 11 millimeter, same type, works like a charm every time. There you go, fully intact bolt. Same here. This one, you don't need to take it all the way out. The only thing you need to do is loosen it, and then you slide this thing out of the way. You see it's an open end here. Unlike here, it's a closed one. What I usually see, this is funny, people put it inside out like this. Like, I've seen that. Like, I don't know how they manage it, but like, oh well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. There you go, just like that. Check your other one. Now I am ready to remove this whole plastic cover off, and for that, first of all, we got to remove those wires out of the way. And in order to do that, the first thing I'm gonna do is take this cover off. So it's pretty straightforward. Just release those tabs on each side. There is also the same ones on the other side, but much smaller ones, so it's shorter size. You probably won't see it anyways, but and you just slide those locks into the open position on each side, and there you have it. Just lift it off. Just keep the rubber out of the way. There we have it. Clean it up. It's always going to be dirty like this. And now, once all of that removed, we have those little clips right here on each side, which, well, this side I can use just a finger, and there you go. This is out. It only goes one way, so you probably can't mess it up. If you look close enough, small wire, bigger, the biggest. That's how they go. And now, just pop them off. There we go. And nothing else is on the way of removing this plastic cover, although it will be necessary for me later on. I'll remove the wires from this box, so it's easier to move them around. And now we are ready. It's sitting on the same grommets as the oil filter, the air filter box. So just pop it. Just be careful. It's one. There's another one right here. There, and the last one right there. So there we have it. Now we're gonna continue with the removal of this charge pipe. That's one of the hardest parts technically, in order not to break anything. It's not hard at all if you break this hose, but removal of this one is critical, and if you're not sure if you can do it without breaking it, just get another one of those. I can post the part number for this one. It's not expensive. It's like $40 to $60 for genuine part. Might need replacing anyways. So the first one, there's a bolt. It's a Torx 25 right down here, as you can see. I'm not sure if you can, but follow the extension. So it's easily to see from where I'm standing. So remove that. Just one bolt. There is no bolt on the other side. That's the first one. Then don't forget to disconnect that connector right here. I use the pick tool and just slide it out. And then we have the 10mm bolt out of the way. And now I will proceed with the removing this hose. It's PCV hose. It's as carefully as I can. I'll take this one out for now. All right. So there's a 4 arms like this, as you can see. Those are all over this part of the valve cover. I'll start with the bottom one, and I'm gonna probably leave my pick tool in here like this, and then we continue one by one. I'm gonna be releasing those. I kind of hold it with my finger, although it's gonna be really harder and harder once I remove or move more of them. You see, those are not locking anymore. One of the tricks you can do, you can put your screwdriver right here. That's kind of what it's built for, I guess. Let's go over this one. Keep the tension. As I usually say about those hoses, keep the tension, don't create the tension. Oof, that's a hard hose to take off. Let's see. There we have it. The bottom. That's why I say it's one of the hardest parts, not to break it. Slightly sliding it out, as you can see on the bottom. Bottom is good. As you can see, it's moving. Now, once it starts moving, all you want to do is rotate the whole thing, and there you have it. Now, that's how you do it. It's not broken, so good. That's a success. Look how much plastic it takes to remove on this BMW just to get to the valve cover, just to take a look at the valve cover. Now we're going to remove this vacuum hose, and I'm going to be using the pick tool. I'm going to stick it in there again. So you see there's a tab right here. Yep. So it's lifted. And now, I'm not sure if you guys can see it because my hands are covering it. I'll try from the bottom. We're gonna do the same on this side. It's basic BMW squeeze and release hoses, but it's really hard to do at this location. Yep, lost the tension. So yeah, the best way is to stick the pick tool in here and be prepared to drop it. And I'll get another pick tool and just squeeze it in here easily. There you go. That's how it pops. And now once it's removed, you can turn it and put it anywhere you want. It's a flexible one. Continuing at this area, remove the connector from, this is a funny part, this basically eccentric shaft actuator combined with the Valvetronic motor. That's what they use on the N55. That's fun stuff. And continue to disconnecting the wires. And now, once we remove all that, we'll be able to see the leak finally. I can show you where it's leaking, why we're replacing this gasket. So So those are just standard wire holders, nothing new. Important part, you see, that's funny. You see those markings on those connectors? It's like, why would you do that? But the shops that don't know BMWs well enough, they do that to not mix the connectors. They have no idea. I'll show you how you can never mix the connectors. If you remove this connector and you look inside, what do you see right here? It's fully black inside, and this is a fully black connector. They meant for each other. If you take this one out, this is other oxygen sensor, it's yellow right here. And look, hey, it's yellow inside as well. So you can't really mix them up unless you don't pay attention. So don't do that. But you can easily disconnect them, and once again, they're different. They're not the same. They are not the same. Pay attention to that. Let's see. Oh, there's a fun vacuum line right here that's going on. I've seen those crack, and they make a lot of whistling noises, like those lines right here, like this one in particular, because it's not rubber, it's a plastic line, sort of. You can replace it right away, but not absolutely necessary. But that's interesting. It connects right here to the valve cover on top, so you got to remove those anyways. I just don't see the reason why would they made it plastic like this, because it breaks real easy. Take it out of the way so you don't break it. And the other one is the shorter one right here. Disconnect that as well. And now finally I think we are able to see where it's leaking. Here's the leak, guys. You see all this buildup right here. This is all oil. And what happens is it usually leaking in the back, so that's very common. A lot of heat generated in there, so it leaks on the protective shield, it leaks down on the exhaust manifold, catalytic converter and exhaust manifold reaching high temperatures, 800 degrees easily Celsius, and it just starts burning this oil. There is no exact fire, but it's a lot of smoking going on, and from this area it gets sucked into the air vents of your car, and that's the reason why you smell burning oil in the cabin. All the wires are out of the way. Just remove those. If you haven't disconnected your battery by now, do that. We're going to be disconnecting the fuel line later on. So this is a Torx 30. Just got to remove this bracket. Keep it off. And now we finally have access to the ignition coils and the wires and all of that. So here's how you remove the ignition coil. I'll show you on the easiest example, like this number 2 right here. So the way you do it, you're either using your hands and you lift it up like this a little bit, and then you push it and it releases the connector. If it didn't happen, which it's very common, so let's say you push it, you try to release it, but the connector doesn't come out, what you can do is you can put your pick tool probably right here, and then the screwdriver, because it's going to be enough, and you just slightly push it side to side and it will come out. And then the other way of doing it is just squeeze it on the side and try to do it like that. Simple. Now after you did that, just leave it all the way up. What I usually use is a screwdriver, so I put it right here and I just lift it straight up. No angles, just straight up. And there you go. You remove the ignition coil. Other than that, what we gotta do is remove those 8mm nuts, those are ground cables. It's 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3 in the back, and we gotta remove all 6 fuel injector connectors. How to do those? Simple. Use the pick tool. Once again, I'll demonstrate on just once right here. So all you gotta do is pick tool, put your pick tool right here, and just grab the wire and release it. That's all it takes. All right, I'll remove all of them and we'll get back. So all the coils and wires are disconnected. The only thing left is there is a Torx 25 bolt right here in the back. That's one. And well, since I have this Torx 25 right here, it's another one right here, which is feels weird. And now we are finally able to remove this whole wiring harness out of the way from the back. All we need to do is just move it away, just like that. And once we're here, I will push and release connector in the back of the high pressure fuel sensor. Just take it off because we're going to be removing this one as well, and just free the wiring out of here. There you go. And this is it. We are almost on the home run for the removal of the valve cover. Now we're going to remove the fuel rail, and I'll start with the 17 millimeter nut right here. The rest of them are 14 millimeters. You can remove your fuse for fuel pump and try to start the car till it runs out of fuel and all of that. Like, no reason. Just keep your towel ready, basically, and I'll just put it right here. The gas evaporates really quick. When you remove this, doesn't matter if you have your battery connected or disconnected, it will squirt a little bit of fuel here and there, maybe everywhere, but not much. So just don't go too fast. Just loosen it a little bit, you see, and it starts to pouring the fuel out. So that's how it's done. Let it be, let it be. Get another towel. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit gas over there. It's not damaging anything. Nothing happens. Nothing's gonna burn. And of course, like, I don't really see any reasoning behind going to the fuse box, removing the fuse, try to start the car, like, get rid of all the gas. Like, come on, so many steps for what exactly? And there you go, it's out. Don't let this nut go down, because it's kind of going to be hard for you to fish it out. So just keep it in here. You might, what you want to do, you might want to stick your towel right here, so even if it falls down, it doesn't go far. And now, once we lost the fuel pressure here, I'm gonna release the tension on those, and from here as well, the gas will come out for sure. Like this distance right here, it's full of gas, like you can't get rid of it, and there's nothing's gonna happen. So it evaporates real quick. By the time you're gonna be installing the new valve cover gasket, well, I mean the valve cover with the seal, it's all gonna be gone. And once again, if you want, you can try and catch as much as possible of the gas, but not necessary at all. Okay, so all the lines are disconnected. And now one of the, not the most important parts, but interesting ones on how to remove those wire holders without breaking them, because if you just try, it doesn't move. And I'll show you why. The reason why and the way you have to do it, you have to push forward just like that. See? Push forward just like that. And now lift it and take it out. There you have it. There's at the bottom right there, there's kind of a hook, a small one, but that's a hook that goes into the rail. And once again, another demonstration. Push it forward, not much, and lift it up. Turn it. That's all. And now it exposes us. We need to do that because it exposes the 11mm bolts. Right here, it's 4 bolts, 2 of them covered with the wire hangers, and we gotta remove those. Those 11mm bolts, there's one thing to remember about them. Let me see. Oh, this one doesn't have it already. Like there is a metal piece, should be either here on the bolt or inside the fuel rail itself. Don't miss those, but if you do, you see nothing happened. It already doesn't have it, so. Maybe none of them do. So remove those bolts and then you see with the last bolt, the fuel rail is free. Expect gas to come out, so take it out. And one last step before we proceed with removing the valve cover bolts is removing this seal from this eccentric shaft thingy. It's not exactly sensor, even though it kind of is. Just 2 E7 bolts. There you go. Just take it out. And now we are ready to remove all the valve cover bolts. Most of them are visible. The only ones that are not are in the back. I'll show you exactly what kind of extensions I'm going to use to remove those. But they are on this 3 series pretty much, let me see, just a standard foot-long extension. And can I put it in there? Yeah, right here. It fits right on the bolt, so nothing's on the way. It's right there, and let me see. It's out. The other one is right there. So those are hard bolts, considered hard bolts. If you've seen our other video on N52 replacement, it's much harder in there than on this one, and here it's not gonna fit. And also before we remove the valve cover, I'll remove this seal, well, partially, don't need to do it all the way. For this bolt right here, yeah, this extension will not gonna work anymore. So what we can do, I'll take this 3-inch extension, let's say, put it over just like that. There you go, and just use the and once you loosen it, it should go easily by hand. Yep, there we go. One of the important things is don't forget about the center bolts. All the bolts in the middle are very important. It's really to skip one or two. All the bolts are, I call it removed. A lot of people ask, like, how can I take it out? It's really hard. They are built in there. Once they're all the way loose, that's all you gotta do. You don't need to remove, and you shouldn't. Like, it's really, I don't recommend you removing them at all, like ever. Like that's the way they are. That's the way they're supposed to be. Just loose like that, not in the threads, and that's pretty much it. So all the bolts are loose. Now we are able to remove the valve cover. But if you try, oh, there you go. That's easy. This one was pretty straightforward, but sometimes they are kind of really harsh to remove. So what you're gonna do is, you see this right here. So let me get the wires out. Usually if it doesn't come out, all you can do is just put your screwdriver right here and just pry it against. It's gonna loosen it like this. Nothing's gonna break. That's how I remove stock valve covers all the time. So now once everything removed, I don't need to remove this positive wire on, let's say, on the N52. You should. Right here there's enough room. It's well, it's worth to say that this repair actually is simpler on this engine than on the N52 engine. Valve cover replacement on N52 is more complicated and is it's kind of tighter in there, even though it's the same body and the same fitment, but slightly different engine. So there we go. Now the order of removal, as usual, it goes all over here. On 3 Series, that is the tightest, basically, engine compartment on all of the BMWs with this engine. All you gotta do is get over the back, and then you sort of twist it. You see, like, how the valve cover hitting this cover right here. There is no problem with that. That's what it's supposed to do. Some things are on the way. Let me see. Hit an obstacle there. Even though it's much simpler on this engine, it's still a bit of a struggle. Let me push it back a bit. Oh, well, actually. There we go. When the valve cover is removed, there's oil coming out of this spot right here and this spot right here. So you just well, basically I'd say let it drain. Lots of it. It's a crankcase vent system. I'd say there is no need to clean it in any way, but you can do that. It might prolong the life of the crankcase vent valve. It's a possibility, not necessarily though. Those are gone. Let's drain some more. See, it's not much left. Just getting rid of this oil. It's good for the car. All right, now, oof, more and more. All right, that's plenty of oil in there. Let's just put it onto the oil pan. Let it drain. So here's the valve cover gasket, this one and this one's right here. So it's all comes as a kit. Let's see how it's doing. This one doesn't feel too bad, but on a closer look, yeah, it's cracking. If you bend it, like, it's just breaking apart. There's a big misconception about those valve covers cracking, and this is simply, well, let's say from my experience, that's not true. I've replaced hundreds of those, and 6-cylinder valve covers rarely crack. Like, that's I've seen maybe a couple of those, not more. So let's say we have a leak at the bottom, at this corner. As you can see, it's even all oily in here. So let's take a look, like if there's any cracks or what's going on in here at all. I can bet, like, first of all, the visual inspection of the outside. I don't see anything weird here as well in the back. And the common spot if the valve cover cracks would be inside where the gasket goes. So we'll just clean it up. Like, well, it's a good thing to clean. We will have to clean it up anyways, the passages where the gasket goes, make it dry. So I'll clean that up right now with the carb cleaner. Brake cleaner will do just fine. Any of those things. Once I've done that, let's get the towel, shop towel, and make this area dry to make sure there are no cracks. And if there is a significant crack, you will see it. There is micro cracks, like they don't cause a leak like that, the one you can smell inside the cabin. It might be Micro cracks will usually, they will create a buildup of oil around the area, but they will not drip, let's say, to the catalytic converter or exhaust manifold. So inside, outside, it's all nice and clean. What about the valve cover being warped? Honestly, visually you can't tell ever, but once installing you probably will feel it. It's just not sitting right, but usually it's just people installing the valve cover wrong, and that's what's causing the issue. So I don't see any problems with this valve cover in here. The only reason I'd say you might want to replace the valve cover is because of the crankcase vent valve, this area right here. This is part of it. Like, you can find kits where you have to cut this part out and replace the spring in the membrane in there, but that's only part of the crankcase vent valve system. The reason why it fails, it clogs up, and the whistling noise happening, so you got to replace the valve cover at this point. But it's I can't say there is a rule on when this happens, so it's just if you're doing this job, maybe it makes sense to you to replace the valve cover, maybe not, so it's up for you to decide. So what I'm gonna do next is clean all the passages, clean the valve cover, and I'll show you how to install the valve cover gasket. So the valve cover is clean, all the passages are clean. I didn't clean it outside much, but I did as much as I could. Now we're gonna apply a little bit of a silicone on some corners. This time I'm using L-ring silicone. I like it, so that's the one I have. You can also use, let's say, Permatax, gray, black, like, doesn't matter. The only reason we're going to be using the silicone is to keep the, there's some watery substance in here, to keep the valve cover in place. So I'm going to be applying it on the weak spots, just a little bit right here. I can see just a little bit right there, definitely in the middle. That's a weak spot, and definitely this corner. So yeah, I'd say put one right here. I don't need to apply much through this area, that's the top area, so I'll just do a little bit in the middle and proceed right here, just a bit, tiny bit. That's enough for the top. And for the bottom, I'll just put it in this gap right here, and in this gap right here, and also right there. For the front of it, just a tiny bit. And that is well, basically enough, but I'll just put a tiny bit on the middle sections, on the corners of the middle sections, just a little bit, to let the gasket hold on to it, because those can fall, and although it's possible to readjust them if they do, without removing the valve cover, better not to allow it in the first place. So just apply a little bit of a silicone. That's all it takes. Don't overdo it. Never ever overdo it, because if you overdo it, it will shorten the life of the seal, and you don't want that. Regarding parts, we're going to be using the L-ring as usual. So I will have the link for this gasket in the description. So that's how it comes, and we'll start with the valve cover gasket itself. You can't mix it up. It only goes one way because of this center holes right here. So you can start with those, definitely. There you have it. Just definitely make it all nice and firm so the seal sits properly everywhere. And after you installed it, let it sit for at least 30 minutes before you try to put the valve cover back, because the only reason we're applying silicone is to let the gasket stick to the valve cover, because it's definitely a struggle to put it back just as a removal. So you definitely want to let this gasket really stick to the valve cover, so if it's hitting the wall of the head, let's say, it's not falling apart. That's the reason for the silicone, nothing else. Same rule applies to the center portion, so just make it all nice and flat all the way in. Nothing else much required. After you installed all of it, once again, let it sit for at least 30 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm gonna clean the head and everything, all the oil in there. So before installing the valve cover, of course, just clean the head and all surrounding areas, the heat shield, everything you can reach, basically, out of oil. So if it's leaking again, you will see it right away. Before installing the valve cover, in order to make this procedure simpler, I removed 3 10mm bolts from this plastic piece right here. In order for that, you need to remove the other support bar, and after that it just comes off, so it will give you more room in this area, so it makes it a little bit simpler. So now the valve cover seems to be dry enough. I hope that'll do. Here's the test. Nothing comes off. Let's get on it. And you definitely start from the back. Just put the valve cover here to rest for a second. You gotta pay close attention for the seals in the back. That's your biggest concern. Everything else is kind of okay. All right, sort of got it moving. And it's inevitable that the valve cover will heat some parts of the head, parts of the Valvetronic. I got it where I need it, but that's the point where you check if the valve cover is still in place. Definitely, I would recommend to take your gloves off to do that. I've done plenty of those to know for sure. There we go. Okay. Let me see. Seems like we're all good to go. But it's like something on the way. A bolt. There we go. It's this plastic right here, so it's movable more once you remove that. So, all right. Now, the valve cover is in position where we can just put it down. But once again, I want to check the seal in the back, this corner, and the other corner. Reach as much as you can. Yep, I feel it, but I'll do another test. The seal in the back, both corners, feels great, all intact. Now I can finally put the valve cover where it belongs, of course. Oh, you see a little bit of a gasket coming out of here. No big deal. The front is simple. The most important is the back. So once we put it in there, the good sitting valve cover always will be noticeable. Okay, and now once again I want to check the seal in the back. Just a little bit, you don't need to lift it much. Just lift a little bit. The back. Yep. And here's what happened. A little bit of a seal, like I don't feel the seal on this corner, so I need to lift it more, put it back, and put it back again. That happens. So check, double check, and triple check your seals. That's what you're supposed to do. That's enough. So yeah, I can see it. I can see it hanging in there. The seal came out a little bit, not much, but it did came out. And we're putting it back again. And now, that's why it felt weird to me, the valve cover. Now it feels solid. It's like, you know, when the seal, when the valve cover gasket is not sitting properly and it came out a little bit, and you put the valve cover back in place, and it's the way to describe this feeling when it didn't feel right to me, it's like there is a little bit of rock in there. So you put a solid something flat on a rock, and it's not exactly flat. It's not exactly the way it's supposed to be. So that's why I triple checked the gasket. And once again, I'm gonna check the gasket right now again, just to make sure. And that's what you guys have to do as well. Like check this area, has to be checked multiple times before you bolt it on. So just keep that in mind. It's very important. It's the most crucial part of this repair. Like putting it back together properly is very important for this car and for this gasket, for this engine. Well, as any other engine, N52 as well. Like that's the most common failure on N52 engine as well. So once again, I can't stress it enough, check your seals. So everything is bolted on. The way you do it, there is no specific bolt pattern you have to tighten it. What I can recommend is hand tight all of it first. Hand tight, absolutely. So all the bolts are hand tight and hitting the surface of the valve cover, and then I would start like a standard crisscross pattern. Like you start in the back, like let's say 3 bolts in the back, you bolt the front, and then you go one by one, top and bottom, and the middle is whenever you feel like. Regarding the torque specs, Google it. I'd say the good rule for the valve covers on all the recent BMW engines is 8 to 9 Newton meters, but don't quote me on that. Use common sense. I recommend that more, because people try to torque stuff, break it. I've seen it hundreds of times, so I can't tell you like, hey, you got to do this by the torque specs only. Like not really, guys. It's not rocket science right here. So just an engine, just a car. What goes from here? Well, everything basically in reverse order. We'll show some of it definitely. Because, well, let's say the hard part is installation of this charge pipe we disconnected in the beginning, so I'll show that for sure. Easy stuff is no big deal, so we're probably gonna skip that, and yeah, let's get to it. I put this cover back on, nothing hard. 3 10mm bolts. We'll put the support bar later on. Now it's time for the fuel rail, which is as well not hard at all. So I'll start with this one, 17mm. Just hand tight it, make sure it's there, and then we will hand tight the injectors. All of them supposed to go in easily by hand. If they don't, I don't recommend you forcing it. You break those threads, you have to replace injectors, but it usually, sometimes it happens that you have to, but it's very rare. Usually, like it might be in the beginning when you have to use the wrench to get it on, and then it just goes in easily. But I've seen some where you just absolutely, like this one, let's say it's a bit of a tension here, so it's not what I'm gonna do is just loosen it on this end, so it's more free in here. And now we're gonna put it on the injector. Yeah, it goes on easily. Now once all the injectors are kind of bolted on like this, like hand tight, once again, we can finally hand tight this one, and only now I will install those 11mm bolts back in place. Let me see. Once again, start with just a hand tight. Once again, you don't need to. Let me see. It's normal for the fuel rail to want to move somewhere. That's why we're just putting those bolts on, creating some tension there, hand tight. This one, come on, this one doesn't want to go in. All right, but you got the idea, guys. So it's just if you need to push it forward a bit, that's okay. It's not a big deal. Just don't forget to tighten everything. Then after we bolt on those 11mm bolts, definitely make everything tight, all the connections, make sure all of them are, because if they're not, they're going to be leaking gas and you don't want that. Everything's bolted on, everything's tight, so now we can push those wire holders down till they click. And first thing, it's this wiring harness. It has a specific spot behind the valve cover, so it just stays in there. So that's the way it goes. Don't forget to, while you're in here, to plug in the sensor, and we put the wires back in place. So this one goes right here and over there. Now fuel injectors, just click them in, real easy to do. Don't forget the 8mm, but it's hard to forget. Everything basically goes exactly where it's supposed to, since that's the way this wiring harness is designed. So just click everything in, and I'll show the important moment a second later. The ignition coil. That's important. Because if you don't click the ignition coil fully, you might have a horrible misfire, the car shaking, like all of that, just because you didn't click it in fully. So the way it's supposed to be, I'll probably show it without even putting it in. So check this out. So this is how it goes. You put it in fully. You see, there is no gap in there, and you lock it in. That's how it's supposed to be. If you have, like, let's say for some reason your connector goes like this and then it clicks and it doesn't push it all the way in, which is supposed to, this will not do. This is a bad connected coil that can cause a lot of issues. Worse if it's like this. I've seen cars doing the job, like someone doing a job, and they didn't fully click in the ignition coil. This car had 15 trouble codes, starting from multiple misfires, of course, all the cylinders, this, that, like, to some random codes out of nowhere. And the reasoning for it? One unclicked fully ignition coil, just one. That's it. 15 fault codes, all different ones, because of one ignition coil. So just make sure you do that. Once again, click, that's it, nice and easy. And then all the way down. The rest is simple, 8mm nuts and the rest of the ignition coils. Don't forget this weird thing, still have no idea what it's for. Maybe just for the cover sitting properly. Now the bracket goes next. This bracket, so all the coils, all the 8mm are in, all the fuel injectors are connected. I put the Torx 25 right here for the wiring. Don't put this one, we'll need it later on. Now we put back the bracket. It's held by Torx 30 single bolt right here. There we go. That's it. And now we are putting back this wiring harness. Putting it back simpler than taking it off. Just clicks in, everything clicks in. That's the connector for the boost solenoid. Put it on. Don't forget your vacuum lines for the valve cover. And the one that is tend to break. So just be careful with it, I'd say. It has its specific spot right here. Specific wire holder. There we go. Click it in and connect it to the valve cover. Again, that's where it's supposed to go. And now we finally can connect back the oxygen sensors. Once again, yellow, yellow. There we go. Black, black. There we go. No need to mark it. They already are. Okay. That all seems great. And now we can finally put those things back in their spots. There we go. And first cover goes back in place. Just put the wires off, put the rubber, make sure it sits flat, lock it, and it's all locked. There we go. The seal is back. And we're pretty much done. The next thing is plastic install. Of course, we can't live without it. Just make sure you keep your mass airflow sensor connector out of it. It's pretty much sits where it's supposed to sit. There we go. All right, and this one. Okay, so now we have that. Click. Before installing this pipe, I just wipe it off, even though it doesn't do much. Okay, so here comes kind of the hard part, how to install this hose back and don't break it. So we got this pipe in, and the most important part is not to force it. And if you like, when you're putting this hose, push it from here. Don't try anything over this. This is where it breaks, around this area where it bends. So you go just like that. Sounds not great. Take your time, don't rush it, for sure. It's definitely not that simple, but it's doable. So guys, definitely take your time, push it from all corners. That is not an easy task at all. It has to click in. Right. Take your time, fellas. I will too. There we go. You can lubricate it with oil, or let's say WD-40 is fine as well. There's an O-ring there, that's why it's so hard. But as you can see, doable. No problems at all. And then it's time to install this 10mm back. And the more important one, Torx 25, that is down there, the one you don't see. And the spark charge pipe intact. Don't forget to plug this in. Will trigger the check engine light if you don't. And from this point on, we are done. Just that's the final part before testing. So before I install the box, I'll connect the mass airflow sensor right away. And don't forget those wires. All right, that's it. First thing after any repair, what I do is I check for codes to see what's in there. Maybe I forgot to plug something in, left something disconnected. That happens. No problem there. Let's see, no fault codes. Oh, good. So, what can you expect when you're first starting? Because you disconnected the fuel line, that's what's gonna happen. Check this out. See, it takes a little bit longer than usual, but the second start up, it's just gonna be right away. So there you go. One more thing to expect from this repair: if you had the leak at the bottom corner, of course you probably did, that's why you did the repair. There's plenty of oil still in the catalytic converter on the exhaust manifold, so once you start the car it will be smoking. after, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes, when it heats up, you will see the smoke coming out, and it will not go away unless you wash the car or unless you run it for, let's say, 30-40 minutes, like depending on how much oil is in there. Until it all burns off, it's still going to be smoking a little bit. So be prepared for that. It not necessarily means that you installed something incorrectly, but it just might be there. Don't be scared, expect it. And once the car is running, I check for codes again. We got nothing at all, no fault codes. So that's a DME, we all good, car is running great. So I'll keep it running for a bit, see what happens. Just double check the area, of course, of the valve cover, the bottom corner. Anyways, since everything is clean, if there is a fresh oil, if there is a pinch in the gasket or something like that, you definitely will see the fresh oil in there because everything is clean. So this is it. Alright guys, I hope this video was helpful. This is how you replace the valve cover gasket on N55 335i with which is this one is E92, but any of those sedan, convertible, coupes. And I hope this video was helpful for you. So please like, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions, definitely comment. I will post the link for the part for the L-ring valve cover gasket in the description. So if you have any questions, once again, feel free to ask. Although I can't diagnose any cars over the internet, you know. So thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one, and don't break your cars.